Good afternoon, buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Maybe just a quick note before I introduce myself, which is that all of our events at Lit and Loose include English to Spanish interpretation, courtesy of Interprenet. If you would like this service, you can download the Interprify app to your phone, and you'll find a QR code outside. If you raise your hand, somebody can help you as well. So thank you all so much for being here on this rainy Saturday in October. One of Ana Castillo's books, Give It to Me, talks about how October is the time in Chicago when the weather turns, and I remember that very vividly. That seems to be incredibly true, that September is global warming hot, the book says, and October is when it all becomes fall-like. So welcome to the first event in the Lit and Loose Festival 2023 edition. My name is Daniel Bortzuzky. I am a poet, a translator, one of the founding artistic directors of the Lit and Loose Festival, and I'm also a professor at UIC and director of our newly formed Center for Latinx Literature of the Americas, and I'm here in kind of both my UIC and Lit and Loose capacities as we are co-sponsoring this event together. So if you're interested in finding out more about the Center for Latinx Literature of the Americas, please feel free to talk to me or visit our website. Lit and Loose began in 2012 unofficially with a series of live bilingual events following the release of Make Magazine issue number 13, Intercambio, Exchange, a bilingual edition featuring new work from Latin American writers and created in response to the dismal amount of translated literature available in the US. In 2014, through a grant from the MacArthur Foundation, the Lit and Loose Festival was formed officially to support the creation of new art through international collaboration and make space for dialogues between residents of Mexico and the United States. It has been produced yearly in Mexico City and Chicago with writers and artists from both places traveling back and forth each year and collaborating with each other. The 10th annual Lit and Loose Festival, this one, is themed 10. It is a hybrid festival presented in venues throughout Chicago and online. There's dozens of programs that will address the impact of current social and political events on their practices and arts in general. The festival features a signature live magazine show, which will be held at the MCA next Saturday night on that very special event. The way the festival functions is all of the artists who are invited from Mexico are paired up with artists and writers from Chicago to do a collaboration, and on next Saturday, all of those collaborations will be performed in one form or another. So those events tend to be really amazing. So please make sure to get there. At its heart, Lit and Loose is a cultural exchange between writers and artists from Mexico and the US. Past participants have included luminaries such as Cristina Rivera Garza, Valeria Luiselli, Jose Olivares, Erica Sanchez, and many, many other great artists. Lit and Loose today is thrilled to honor as our keynote speaker Chicago native Ana Castillo, and to celebrate her as one of the most dynamic and important writers of our time. For about 40 years, Ana Castillo's poems, essays, short stories, and novels have captured, with urgency and political force, Latinx life in Chicago, in the borderlands, in Mexico, and throughout the Americas. Through feminist and multilingual chronicles of migration, survival, love, friendship, and artistic commitment, and with a richness of form and voice, Castillo has created literary worlds of transcendence and beauty that have been models for generations of writers who revere her as one of the most influential voices in US literature. Whether writing about flamenco dance through a prism of illness, sweatshop labor, and desire in Chicago, as in her 1999 novel Peel My Love Like an Onion, or migration and disappearance in the borderlands, as in her 2007 novel, The Guardians, or writing about sex and desire between cousins, abusive families, and the empowerment that comes to Palma Piedras, the protagonist of Castillo's raucous 2014 novel, Give It to Me. Piedras is a recently divorced, and this is dear to my heart, a translator of Cesar Vallejo, who leaves a trail of humor, pain, and riotous partying wherever she goes. In all its forms, Castillo's writing tracks the realities, vibrancies, urgencies, subtleties, pains, and joys, and complexities of Latino life in Chicago, the Southwest, and indeed throughout the Americas. Ana Castillo's most recent book is Doña Cleanwell Leaves Home, a collection of short stories published this year. She's the author of several books, too many to name, including bestseller novels like So Far From God, The Guardians, Peel My Love Like an Onion, and many others, including the poetry collection I Asked the Impossible. Her novel Sapogonia was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year. Her many honors and awards include the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame Fuller Award for Lifetime Achievement, an American Book Award, a Carl Sandburg Book Award, a Lambda Award, an International Latino Book Award, the Penn Oakland Reginald Lockett Lifetime Achievement Award, among many. We are really thrilled to welcome Ana Castillo back to Chicago and to have her with us today. So please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you. I'm so glad we all found this place today. There's probably still people wandering around out there, but thank you so much for coming in out of the rain to spend this afternoon with me. Gracias, Daniel. I'm very happy to be here. I'm always happy to have a reason, opportunity to come back to my hometown. It's not that I went anywhere in particular. I am semi-reclusive in the desert, writing, doing what writers are supposed to do, which is writing. Drawing. I want to point out to everybody that the gallery, who is also owned by a poet, a Chicago poet and artist, Erica Hilton Contemporary Gallery, is showing my drawings, which is something else I do in my hidden life, and she brought it out, and if you'd like to take a look, they're on Wells and Superior. So that's another reason why I've been happy to be able to come home and have the support of my city. I'd like to thank Make Productions and Lit and Loose Festival for seeking me out and bringing me here to be with you. Congratulations on your 10 years. I will start very quickly with my last book of poems. It's called My Book of the Dead. It seems it just came out in 2021. It seems that the title means more today than it did even in 2021, 2022. We have so many reasons to be thinking about these things, not without a grain of hope. So I want to start on this occasion to read a poem that I wrote. I live close to the border, US-Mexico border. This poem is called Detention. I crossed first on foot, rode atop La Bestia. Rain, wind, cold, we held on. My friend lost a leg, he was 10, alone. We swam El Rio, nearly drowned, caught a lift in a trailer. There were others, no air, no water, stink of sweat, urine, and feces penetrated darkness. Hands reached for my privates. Everything we had was stolen. My sister raped, later raped again. She was 14, we went on. Mi hermanito was taken, we went on. Our mother was waiting in el otro lado. Don't cry, my sister said, only babies cry. One night we were hiding, a baby started crying loud, then louder, then it stopped. We went on. We were caught, held in la hielera. I didn't want to eat. I ate and got sick. I slept on the ground. I was truly afraid for the first time. I missed my home. I missed my grandmother's atole. Quetzaltenango was like a moving painting in my head. Took the place of dreaming. My people are there. My father lay in the cemetery. One day I'll see them again. My mother was not found. The authorities said I was put on a plane to New York, placed in a cell. There is a court date, they tell me. A judge will decide my fate. I will not understand him or her. An interpreter will later explain. I don't have a lawyer. I might never go back. Some people would like to take care of me. Gringos and very religious. Be happy, everyone says. At least here you are safe. You get fed. One night, 2 kids beat me. In the day, they denied it. In the day, everything is not what it seems. Outside the window between tall buildings, sky is gray, even in July. You kids need to be grateful. A guy who throws toilet paper rolls at us yelled in passing. Mi abuela used to say, necesitar no es igual a desear. I desire her voice near my ear, soft hands kneading masa, aroma of tortillas on the comal. I desire to hear the bleating of abuelo's goats and the racket of the chickens. I want the sunlight on my face, shimmering like the crystals on a chandelier. In the hotel where Mama worked, she sent pictures. My mother is in Las Vegas. I tell them, is she a prostitute, they ask. I want to see my big brother again. He was taken from our bed, masked men with rifles. My sister is gone now too, the one who was raped. I want to say goodbye to someone. Needing is not the same as desiring. I desire God's face behind my closed eyelids as I drag a sliver of glass across my wrist. Now I watch blood glisten like the crystals of a chandelier. Believe it or not, I worked my way through, and I think it's important to mention, I'll do it very quickly, I had a period of time where I was very depressed, and I decided to stop writing, and I worked my way out of that, for those who wonder when they have writer's block, with my poems from my Book of the Dead. After I went through that, now I was back to writing. Now what do I write about? Now what do I do? So this is a new book, my very newest book. It came out this summer. Doña Cleanwell Leaves Home. The stories are long stories. They take place here in Chicago and in Mexico, mostly Mexico City. There's a very, very short flash fiction piece that the editor included here as a prologue. It starts with the journey. It starts with the journey as ever, whether Quixote or Kerouac, you are in search of the divine. In search of life, we may find ourselves in a dark room, an abandoned building, on a long, thorny road with no end. It's a pedestrian's path, no argument there, the longest trail you can fathom, a winding chain of snakes tied head to tail, the venomous and the harmless, awesome for their iridescent skins, their ability to shed and begin anew. We walk a good way on tiny legs, and yet we're so insignificant we aren't aware of being minutiae. We think we're grand. We think we're worlds unto ourselves. We think we are gods, tiny gods with helmets, but gods nonetheless. Does an ant recognize the elm by the single root it so industriously scurries around? And now, a talk in 10 parts in commemoration of a 10th anniversary. Felicidades, Market Productions, and Lit and Luz by National Family. 1, greetings. I come in peace, humans. Also, I present myself. Important to note within this context that I was born female. in this city, Del Norte, with the birth certificate that designated me as white. You here, guests and residents with a Mexican gaze, might not see the official white status. You, with your 2023 non-Mexican view, may also not see a white woman. For what it's worth, my fellow humans, throughout my lifetime in this country, in this city, and even in these times, whether I've traveled to Mexico, Europe, or Kazakhstan, I've also not been regarded as white. Maybe because I am not. White as a race or ethnicity many now agree is a social construct, a socially accepted construct that has dominated the world for centuries. As such, it is a political reality and a perspective that my own gaze captures in all my endeavors, creative and otherwise. In other words, I draw, paint, compose, report, hear, and interpret how my particular human experiences receive them. Mexicans are not new to this city. Families established communities here, as in the case of my father's family, for over 100 years. Nevertheless, the prevalent dominance of European-centered racialist politics marginalized non-whites, including indigenous peoples, the blood of which, it may be agreed, many Mexican migrants carry. Migration of peoples throughout the globe is constant. Today, in this city, Del Norte, 1 of 5 Mexicans, 1 of 5 residents are Mexican. So it may be said that Chicago has become the coldest city of Mexico. 2, greetings, my fellow humans. I come from the 20th century, and I see the world mostly, although arguably not entirely, from that lens. It's important to be a witness of your times with your gaze, if only you dare have the courage, el coraje, rage to see and share. And for those of us who've aged, we are witness to the change around us too. Ageism likes to picture people after a certain age as stuck. Maybe there are a few. As for myself, I assure you I am not wandering around looking for a payphone at the airport to call a taxi or intimidated by ever-evolving technology. The poet, painter, musician, or combination of these creatives takes courage, coraje, rage a step further. We take from our own gaze and interactive experiences, from reading, from memory, whether askew or accurate, connections, talent, training, and manufacture. That's a 20th century way of saying create, but this implies a deliberateness, a purposefulness for the rest to see and perhaps also become aware of what the artist witnesses. 3, greetings, human friends, amigos, locos, y personas serias, who still believe in passports and nationalities that give you the sense of having rights to a land or a nation. We are witnessing hordes of migrations from south to north, further south to further north, and immigration throughout the globe. Passports and visas aside, what gives anyone the right to any parcel designated territory, island, coast, or country because our ancestors wandered and settled there? Earth has become, not as predicted, overpopulated, but resources instead stretched to their limits. Whether you live here, there, or más allá, this is what we must pay attention to. Each and every one of us has participated in the exhaustion of our mother planet's gifts. We witness it and yet contribute to it every day. We do it every day. Each and every one of us depletes our environment's resources. Not me, says the vegan. Not I, says the committed recycler who spends weekends picking up cans or gathering trash at the beach, but the vegan is on their mobile all day, works at home on a new iPad, which they'll replace and throw away. The bags of collected cans are driven in a car that runs on gas. Our modest wear produced in sweatshops, always on the run, time too seems to be running out. We stop to eat at a fast food spot, and we all know, each and every one of us knows where the tragic trails of waste, worldwide franchises, whether fast food or fast fashion, lead us. We are all witnesses and participants. I am from the 20th century, and admittedly moving a little slower than anyone born in the 21st century, so instead of downloading an app and buying a battery-run stylus to create a drawing, I take pencils and a piece of recycled paper. Maybe I'll draw bees, like the Neanderthal once drew on cave walls for future humans who might pass through and ask, "What are these winged creatures?" Bees. Bees, yes, marvelous things that once existed on this planet. And my, what wondrous things that they did. 4, greetings, humans. I am compelled to repeat, I come in peace. And in peace with the hope and aspiration that this point of view humbly offered on this day, in this city of my birth, in this place on earth to which we all belong, that even if you are a human being filled with contradictions, and who isn't, and some of your actions might be considered contentious or even criminal, that's another topic for another time, I'm sure. It's crucial to be a witness of your times if only you dare have the courage, el coraje, rage, and aspire to document it in some way. 5, and if you dare document your testimony, no promises, people, that what you see will be seen as you saw it, that what you hear will be heard just as it fell on your ears, and what you feel will be felt in the hearts and veins of others, no matter how you try. 6, and most importantly, damas y caballeros humanos, how you've interpreted your testimony as a writer, blogger, poet, artist, sculptor, model, brand maker, entrepreneur, digital content creator, model. Oh, I already said that. Bears repeating because there are so many now. Fashionista, house designer, lifestyle influencer, mountain climber, calorie counter, life coach, all of the above, and oh, let me add, chef, shoe designer, no shade on Carlos Santana's brand, by the way. You're compelled to report to who? To whom? Who is your audience? The artist and writer are always asked. I don't know. Maybe someone watching from the moon. 7, and what if the proverbial man on the moon, say on a night such as this, with the ring of fire and annular eclipse, can't see your work of art because it's banned on the moon? This testimony of yours, the result of your gaze and lived experience, your courage y coraje, well, if determined, you'll find a way, as will whoever is watching from the moon. Censorship is also an ongoing social construct, political reality everywhere around the globe, from a Brownsville, Texas public library to the news on CNN. But it's censorship that has led us all to where we are today, especially the artist, poet, and independent thinker. Censorship is our inspiration, our mana that drives the dissectors of language, culture, the arts, and sciences. We see what others don't see. Human camaradas, the social hierarchy has always determined whose writings, art, music, stage presence, etc., get promoted, become a household word, and what does not. It's up to us, those with enough rage and sense of purpose, has always been to get past the censors. 8. Mis queridos humanos, now listen. We also commit the auto offense of censoring ourselves, censoring what and how we interpret what we witness and what we could also learn from others' views, because we all carry within ourselves our own censors. We censor ourselves, we humans of frail egos, by our politics and religious views, sure. By differing generational viewpoints, yes. Influenced by gender, language, and a slew of other deciding factors: who raised us, how, what, who we've come to love, if at all. Yes, there are so many facets to a human, so frail in every sense, and yet so resilient. 9. One day, amigos, amigas, I don't need to tell anyone here that our faulty human creations, our books, paintings, music, will no longer drive the insatiable human spirit or be driven by it. Advanced versions of the new Chat GPT will be winning Nobel Literature Prizes, having won robot shows at art museums, offering symphonic concerts, earning medals at the Olympics, and a chatbot will be giving TED Talks or addresses just like the one I'm giving here today. But for now, 10, estimados, estimadas, músicos, poetas, y loquacious artists, the earth is still yours. And all that happens on it is for you to interpret for the world, the next generations, and even for whoever is watching on the moon. Go in peace, but carry some healthy rabia with you. Know that while you're competitive, you must extend a hand to those who follow if all humans are to reach the finish line. Gracias. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. We're going to step over here.
Right. Thank you so much, Anna, for your poems and words, and again for being here. So I will get a conversation started with Anna. I've got plenty of questions, but I'll just ask a few of them, and then we'll open it up, and folks in the audience have the opportunity to ask questions and make some comments as well. So I have lots of thoughts as to what you were thinking, what you were talking about in terms of nationality, nationalism, in terms of Chicago's importance to your work, in terms of ageism, in terms of technology, censorship, and what you were calling the human spirit. But I want to maybe just start with kind of bringing us back to the festival a little bit, which is to think about interactions between the writers from Chicago, artists from Mexico. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your own interactions with either Mexican or Latin American based writers and artists. And it could be just as much about work that's been important to you as well from Latin America or from Mexico?
As I mentioned in my talk, that I'm, as of late meaning maybe the last decade, I've been living mostly a semi-reclusive life, and not unlike many people in this world with COVID and people working more at home and so on. And where I live, I could have days of not seeing another person, not another human. So in these years of my life, there's not that much direct interaction, but my mother, who came here as a young woman, was raised in Mexico City, and so our connection to Mexico, in particular Mexico City, was lifelong. And and I was also raised bilingually, and so it's always been an inspiration for me, motivation for me to feel that connection with, and as a Chicana, as a Latina, with other people of similar backgrounds. From reading in Spanish early on, poetry, I was just having a conversation just before this, being one of the first two graduates of the Latin American Studies program at the University of Chicago. I think I was like the only Latina from the United States in the program at the time. And so my whole life has been a very much the way we used to say, bilingual and bicultural, with always seeing the connections rather than the differences. Now, I live about an hour from the US-Mexico border, and so that reality is also very critical, a critical reality that has to influence me in so many different ways as a writer and as an artist. I, as a young woman, self-taught and reading on my own, I often gave credit to earlier 20th century poets and writers that I read, recommended to me because of my interest. One of them was Neruda. He was a big influence on many of us in my generation. But I was always reading in Spanish and in English when I could. We've come a long way as far as the availability of books and people's writings, but it was a pretty big effort for me in the past to find things, to get books from Cuban writers and Spanish language writers, but we made that effort.
Thank you. I was thinking about the first poem, the poem that you read, from the point of view of a migrant, and some of your comments towards the end of your talk about the need to observe, witness, and document. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how that corresponds with aesthetics, for lack of a better word, how it corresponds with writing poems, like what one has to do to get yourself in a frame of mind to kind of write about somebody experiencing the torturous route of migration that you talked about, and kind of knowing that writing about it is very different than the reality of it. So I'm just thinking about how that experience is for you, and what it means to really write about these difficult experiences, and how one kind of can do that and both make it into a work of art on the one hand, and also not feel overwhelmed by the grief of it, among other things.
Right. As a young woman, a teenager here in the city of Chicago, I became aware of what was going on in the world. It was a time, and there was the Vietnam War, and there was the Civil Rights Movement, and I was just a kid when Martin Luther King came here. I mean, it was a lot of things to take in and witness. So my consciousness was forming at a very young age, and although I was always creative, I always loved to read. I loved to draw since I was a kid. It was a decision at some point in which, what am I going to do? Because when you're young and you're full of all this desire to contribute, to do something, you can burn out very quickly because you want to do it all. You want to volunteer here, you want to give the time there, you want to do the other. And so I went through all of that. I finally decided to go back to what was my original passion and desire, which was to be a creative person. This means that you take that very seriously to make it the best, as I said in my talk, and you do your very best to make it the very best you can to share it. We don't know how it's going to be received, if it will be received, or who's going to receive it. So there was that. When I tried to do all the rest of the things, which was to be involved in organizing and so on, it very quickly people learn when they go through this fervor, you burn out. And so my politics, my passion for activism went into the work, into the writing. That doesn't mean that I don't do anything else in my life. As I mentioned with my Book of the Dead, I had fallen into that slump where I felt that after 40 years of writing and believing that I was contributing in some way to some social change, that some way things were better for women, that things were better for Latinos, Chicanos, for the LGBTQ communities, however it was that I was addressing in my work, once I felt that all we were getting was this horrific backlash, I went into the slump, and how I got out of it was through this writing, but also by forcing myself to go out and participate. And we hear a great deal about the floods of people that are being held along the US-Mexico border around Christmas time. I mean, I live very near there, and I saw on the news that people were sleeping outside, and it was very cold, and I just, got some friends and neighbors together, so I didn't want to take something and donate it to clothes or blankets and things. So I wanted to go myself and meet people and talk to them and see what else was going on. And so even though you were, as an artist, if the social consciousness is there, you are always participating in some way in how you can. Not that you can do everything, and you shouldn't try to do everything if you're going to save some of yourself for yourself. And some of yourself for yourself is to take care of yourself, to feed yourself, to sleep, to have some joy in your life. And I always remind people who, especially younger people who are being filled with that consciousness, that you have to save a little bit of your energy for yourself.
I was thinking about that question in terms of your statement about kind of interpreting your testimony, and it seems to me, your interpretation of your testimony is what leads to your books in their various forms. I asked this question as someone who's about to turn 50 and is now looking back and seeing that I have a sort of larger body of work that I'm not sure what my connection to it is. But you, as having written so many books, and I wonder what it's like for you to kind of look back at either your books from, I don't know, 20 some years ago, and to kind of think about, I don't know, how you relate to them, who you are and who you were, and what that, I don't know, what that means for your work at the present.
Well, it's funny because I actually, like my first novel that I wrote when I was in my 20s, in the 70s, it's never gone out of print. It's still being read. I got a request for interest in a movie option from Spain, and surprised me, the Miskiwala letters. But the thing is when I wrote it, I didn't even think it would get published, because what I was writing was so I had that coraje, and I guess that courage. It was so forbidden that I was positive that I would die with that manuscript, like between the mattress and the bed spring, that nobody would have read it. I gave it, if I thought it would still be around, I would have given it a more accessible name than the Miskiwala letters. It was like an inside joke. You mentioned Give It To Me in the introduction. Give It To Me is kind of having a very slow upstart. I did get the lambda, thankfully. but to give it a little attention. But I feel like sometimes when you have that coraje, when you have that desire to say just very simply, I exist, which is what I was trying to do in those earlier works, and I've always tried to do that through my characters and even in the poetry, it takes people time. So I think, for example, the Miskawalera's first book, I think it still has some life to be viewed by new readers and new audiences. The most popular novel that I had was So Far From God, which I wrote living in northern New Mexico, and I saw that wonderful culture. It was so authentic, disappearing because of the gentrification of the area, and the original peoples there were selling and leaving, and the people that were coming in were disappearing that culture. And I'm so glad that I was able to, with the grace of God and northern New Mexicans, to be able to capture it, and it's there now. And I see it today, even though I may be mentioning very specific things about the 90s, I see it as relevant today for that community, and I've been very lucky that people around the world have responded to So Far From God, because these changing communities are everywhere. It talks about the collective need for returning to sheep herding and caring for the land and so forth. I have a very good friend from Taos, native Taos, Taoseña, that I met through this work, and people always laugh when I say, oh, my friend, the shepherdess, because she's a shepherdess who loved the book and had continued as a woman, continued that tradition to keep it there. So I think that these early works were somehow, in a way, ahead of their time, not because they were ahead of their time, but because the powers that be weren't open to this perspective and this literature.
I've got plenty more questions, but we'll let folks jump in. So if you have a question, why don't you, if you're comfortable, we could maybe distribute the mic. Could we do that? But anyway, raise your hand if you have a question, and we will pass it along.
Good to have you back, Doctor. I just wanted to see, are you working on anything new for us? Congratulations on your latest book.
Thank you. Yeah, I took a break to come here. I'm in the full throes, nose to the grindstone, on a novel. It's called Isabel 2121. Once again, I'm challenging myself with genre, and so I don't want to give it away, but it's Isabel 2121, so you have an idea of where it might go. I don't know. I myself hoping it goes well, but that's what I'm working on, and it's scheduled for publication in 2025. And as I mentioned, this book just came out, so I've been very happy to be doing things around to promote that. Very different Doña Cleanwell stories from the book that I'm working on now. Thank you.
This is wonderful, Anna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about how your art, your drawings, inform your writings, your poetry, your short stories, and how your poetry and stories inform your art?
I mentioned very quickly that I went through a slump, and I'm not sure what happened right at the time where I was done with words, and I went back to my first love. It really was my first love. I did include some of the drawings in my Book of the Dead. I'm still drawing, and thank you so much for your wonderful support and putting the work out there. Now that I'm working on this new novel, Isabel 2121, I think I can see the relationship more than when I was drawing and then when I worked. I felt like working with words is one thing and working with images. I mentioned bees in my talk, and I found the drawing in here by coincidence, so it would print it out with my with my paper, a drawing that I had done on a woman with bees. It was just from one of the drawings. It's called As Bees. And I thought, well, that's funny. I'm talking about bees again. Oh. So somehow the left brain and right brain for me has always worked together. And what I'm seeing now with this new novel, more than ever, I see drawings that are coming out in the narrative. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't know what I was thinking of when I was just drawing. Something will come to me, and I draw it. And it could be, I draw lots and lots of nature, obsessively trees of life, and somehow or other that's working inside of me while I'm also trying to write. Writing is very, very difficult. It's always been very difficult to put one word after the next. But I'm seeing more the relationship of the spirit of the person inside of me that wants to let the world know, to be a witness of what I am seeing, my cries for help, for the tree of life, for our stories, our indigenous stories, our cautionary tales of what could happen. I went through a period where I was drawing a lot of hybrid creatures, half creature, half monster, half person. The monsters in my head, I call them. And so I feel that somehow or other, in a non-verbal way, I express a lot what you will see in the poems, that if you appreciate one genre or the other one, you might make that connection with me. If people are interested, I had mentioned that the gallery is on Wells and Superior, and the work is still there. Some of it's still up there. You can also go to the website. There's many, many drawings. Just like my writing, I just can't stop drawing. I can't stop writing as much as I've threatened to do. We were going to do that. We decided to keep the show up, and the work will still be available for people. At the Basel Art Fair. Yes, thank you.
I have a question regarding your past works. Pim, I Love Like an Onion was probably one of my favorite books, and it was such an original character of Carmen La Coja being a flamenco dancer, and I always kind of wonder if any of your characters will permeate into other stories or into other things, because I always felt like that story was unfinished, and it was one of the things like, you pick it up again and you start reading it, and I said, you know what, because everything has its time, and I think that, I had a book club, and I had everybody that I knew come and read that old book that I had sitting there for the longest time, and I feel the same way about your short stories too, like Lover Boys. That was such a quick read, but they were such original characters, and I always wondered, like, did you ever think about carrying them into other stories, into like your new novel or something?
I used to, for a long time, I had this style of having cameo appearances, because it was hard for me to let some of those characters go. If you read Give It to Me, Carmen La Coja has a cameo appearance in there, but it's like, remember, I don't know, probably people don't know who I mean by Alfred Hitchcock, but he was also known to, when he was a director, to be walking like behind, the characters, and so you might miss it. And I've done that, and I hate to let them go. The other thing I wanted to say about the unfinishedness of it, as a self-taught writer, as an artist, originally a visual artist, I didn't see my creative work in a linear way. It wasn't a politic, it was just the way that I saw it. And so that has been noted by the wide writing establishments, that I don't have endings or proper endings to my stories. You'll see that in the new book, Doña Cleanwell Leaves Home. I know there's a bit of an unease about that. Life is not like that. Things don't just wrap up at the end of the day. Life, as we like to say now, is messy. And you change your mind. You have a major breakup, and 2 days, 3 days later, you call each other or you run into each other, and things start up again. And it's the same thing with the writing. So I do intentionally leave things open, and it's not to play with the reader, but to allow the reader to come to their own conclusions, their own ideas.
So I think we need to conclude. I believe the theater someone needs to move into the theater at some point soon. So let's give one more round of applause to Anna.
Thank you. Gracias.
And just to say, for me, it is an honor to be able to share this time with you. And I think there's so many of us who are so grateful for the both your work and the model you have provided for how to be a artist in so many different capacities over time.
Thank you.
So many thank yous, and I'll try to be brief, but Sarah Dodson, the director of the Lit and Loose Festival, always deserves a big thank you for putting this together, wherever she is. Thanks to everyone who ran the sound and video and all the unseen labor that went into making this happen as well. And thank you all for coming. As we said, there are tons of events throughout the week, so please pick up the calendar outside and try to come to some of the events during the Lit and Loose. There are books for sale, and Anna will be able to sign them and speak with you as well. So thank you again.